10 fixed blades, every one of them marketed with some version of the word combat. Every one of them claiming to be built for real-world use. And if you've spent any time buying gear, you already know that most of those claims live and die in the marketing department without ever being tested against the conditions they describe. Today, we find out which ones were telling the truth. Combat ready is not a feature. It is a threshold. A knife either holds up when the situation stops being theoretical or does not. The factors that determine that threshold: blade geometry under lateral load, handle security when your grip changes because you're stressed or wet or cold, edge geometry that stays functional after contact with materials harder than food, are not factors that show up in product photos or spec sheets. They show up in use, which is why we tested these 10 in use rather than against a list of features. We are counting from number 10 to number 1. Some of the knives at the bottom of this list are genuinely excellent tools for other applications. They're here because they failed something specific that combat ready means, and being honest about that failure is the only version of this video worth making. Number 1 is the knife that passed every test we could design for it. By the time we get there, you will understand exactly why. Let's start at the bottom. Number 10, Gerber StrongArm. Price, around $85 blade. 4.8 inches steel, for 20 HC origin, USA. The StrongArm has been in Gerber's lineup long enough to develop a genuine following, and the following exists for real reasons. The rubberized handle is legitimately secure in wet conditions. The pommel is steel reinforced and usable as an impact tool, and a multi-mount sheath provides carry flexibility that most knives in this price range do not offer. None of that is why it lands at number 10. It is here because the steel is the weak point in a knife whose marketing vocabulary is heavily weighted toward tactical credibility. 420 HC stainless is serviceable for most field tasks and adequately corrosion resistant, but under the sustained edge stress that defines actual combat-ready performance, it fatigues faster than every other steel on this list, and edge recovery in field conditions without a proper sharpening kit is slower and less complete. The StrongArm is a competent utility knife that does its job reliably for the majority of real-world tasks most people encounter. What is not is a knife whose blade steel matches its tactical branding. If you already own one, it is worth keeping. If you're buying specifically because you want genuine combat-ready performance, the 9 knives above it on this list are better answers. Number 9, Cold Steel SRK Compact. Price, around $80 blade. 5 inches steel, VG1 semi-origin, Taiwan. Cold Steel's reputation for making strong, aggressive knives at accessible prices is not an accident of marketing. It is a function of their testing philosophy, which involves attempting to destroy their own products in ways that would make most manufacturers nervous. The SRK Compact lands at number 9, rather than higher, for a reason that has nothing to do with the steel or the construction and everything to do with the handle geometry under stress. The SRK Compact's cylindrical grip shape, which works well for general cutting tasks and feels natural in casual use, begins to rotate under the sustained lateral load of a prime scenario. Not dramatically, not dangerously, but perceptibly enough that in repeated testing, grip consistency degraded before the blade showed any sign of failure. Sami VG1 is genuinely excellent steel in this application, providing edge retention that outperforms most production survival knives at 2 and 3 times the price. The blade geometry is aggressive and purposeful. The sheath is secure. Everything about the SRK Compact except the handle cross-section belongs on a knife ranked higher than number 9. And if Cold Steel ever revisits the grip geometry with a more pronounced index notch, this knife moves up several positions. Number 8. Ka-Bar Full-Size USMC. Price, around $70 blade. 7 inches steel, 1095 Crow Van Origin, USA. The Ka-Bar USMC has been in continuous production since 1942, and the fact that it has remained essentially unchanged in those 80-plus years is not evidence of perfection. It is evidence of sufficient performance at a price point that made large-scale military issue practical. For the purposes of this ranking in 2026, that history creates a specific problem. The knife's design reflects the manufacturing and material constraints of mid-20th century production. And while 1095 Crovan is still a good steel and the leather handle is still functional, both lag behind what the other knives on this list offer for the same or lower price. The 7-inch blade gives the Ka-Bar genuine chopping leverage that shorter knives cannot match, and the combination of name recognition and accessibility makes it a reasonable first fixed blade for someone new to the category. Where it falls short of a higher position in this ranking is edge retention under the hard contact scenarios that Combat Ready implies. The 1095 performs adequately, but not at the level of the higher position knives. And the leather stack washer handle absorbs moisture in ways that affect grip security and long-term durability. Legendary does not always mean optimal. And at number 8, the Ka-Bar earns respect without claiming a position its 2026 competition has not earned for it. Number 7, Fallkniven A1 Pro. Price, around $250 blade, 6.3 inches steel, laminated VG, 10 origin, Sweden. The jump from number 8 to number 7 is also a jump from $70 to $250. And if you're watching this video to find out whether that price difference is justified, the honest answer is, for most people, no. The Fallkniven A1 Pro is a genuinely exceptional fixed blade whose laminated VG tin construction delivers edge retention and toughness characteristics that production knives at this price rarely achieve. The 6.3-inch blade is long enough for demanding tasks, and the convex grind is executed with a precision that reflects a manufacturing process, not driven by cost per unit targets. It sits at number 7 rather than higher for 2 reasons. First, the Thermarun handle, while excellent in cold and wet conditions, is slippery under sustained gripping pressure when heavily loaded, a characteristic that the knives above it in this ranking address more effectively. Second, $250 is a real number, and at that price point the A1 Pro competes directly with custom adjacent makers whose designs reflect more recent thinking about what combat-ready geometry actually requires. It is a great knife in a position that reflects where it sits relative to 9 better options for this specific application, not a verdict on its quality in absolute terms. Number 6, Topse Stile Agle Sierra Delta. Price, around $225 blade, 5 inches steel, 154 cm origin, USA. Tops Knives operates out of Twin Falls, Idaho, and has been making fixed blades for military and law enforcement personnel since 1998. The Sierra Delta is one of their more restrained designs, restrained for tops, which means it is still more aggressive in profile than anything most manufacturers would call a tactical knife. The 5-inch blade in 154 cm hits the practical midpoint of the combat-ready category, long enough to be genuinely useful in demanding scenarios, short enough to carry without the blade becoming a liability in tight spaces. 154 cm is a steel that Tops has worked with extensively, and their heat treatment of it produces a blade that holds a working edge through sustained hard use at a level that outperforms the knives ranked below it in this list. The G10 handle features a thumb ram geometry that Tops specifically designed based on user feedback from field personnel, and the grip security it provides under lateral load is demonstrably better than the SRK Compact's cylindrical profile. The Sierra Delta lands at number 6 rather than higher because the edge geometry, while excellent for cutting tasks, is not optimized for the fine work that a truly versatile combat-ready blade needs to handle, and the 154 cm, good as it is, trails the steels running in the top 5 positions in both toughness and long-term edge retention. Number 5, ESEE Junglas 2. Price, around $320 blade, 10.38 inches steel, 1095 high carbon origin, USA. 10.38 inches of 1095 high carbon steel is a commitment that announces itself. And the ESEE Junglas 2 earns number 5 by being the only knife in this ranking whose blade length creates a capability category that the shorter knives above and below simply cannot enter. Real-world use in dense vegetation, real-world use when you need to process significant material quickly, real-world use in the specific scenarios that special operations personnel described to ESEE's founders when they developed the original Junglas. These are not hypothetical applications, and the Junglas 2's dimensions are not marketed. ESEE's 1095 implementation at the Junglas 2's blade thickness creates a toughness reserve that we could not push to failure in our testing, which is the most direct statement available about what combat-ready means in practice. It sits at number 5 rather than higher because its size is simultaneously its greatest strength and its practical limitation. There are scenarios in which 10 inches of fixed blade is exactly what you need, and scenarios in which it becomes a problem. The 4 knives above it serve more of those scenarios more effectively. But for the scenarios where size matters and toughness is the primary criterion, the Junglas 2 is unmatched in this ranking. Number 4. Benchmade Adamas 375. Price, around $230 blade. For 0.2 inches steel. CPM Crew Wear Origin, USA. The Adamas 375 is not a knife that appears on most top 10 lists, which is part of what makes it worth talking about. Benchmade built it in collaboration with the United States Army's Asymmetric Warfare Group, a unit whose operational mandate involves figuring out what actually works in complex environments rather than what tests well in controlled conditions. CPM Crew Wear is a high vanadium, high tungsten tool steel that delivers an edge retention and toughness combination that sits above 1095, 154 cm, and most stainless production options while remaining more field sharpenable than the higher-end powder metallurgy steels. The 4.2-inch blade runs a flat grind that Benchmade executes with the manufacturing precision their Oregon facility is capable of, and the blade-to-handle geometry reflects the AWG's input about what a fixed blade needs to do when the task changes without warning. The handle is a glass-filled nylon over stainless steel construction that is lighter than G10 alternatives while maintaining the rigidity that combat-ready grip performance requires. The Adamas 375 sits at number 4 because 3 knives above it brings specific advantages in either steel performance or geometry that give them an edge in the specific test scenarios that define this ranking. But as an example of what purpose-driven military collaboration produces, it belongs in this conversation. Number 3. Survive. Knives G1 CPM. Price, around $275 blade. 5.1 inches steel. CPM 3V Origin, USA. Survive. Knives GSO 5.1 is the knife on this list that generates the most friction when serious users compare notes, because its manufacturer is a small Idaho company without the brand recognition of ESEE, Benchmade, or Cold Steel, and brand recognition is not nothing in a category where trust is a purchasing criterion. What the GSO 5.1 has instead of brand recognition is a decade of direct user feedback from the kind of people who buy knives to use them hard and return to say specifically what worked and what did not. The CPM 3V implementation reflects that feedback loop, the heat treatment protocol, the compound grind geometry, and the handle contouring were all arrived at through iteration rather than convention. In our combat-ready test protocol, the GSO 5.1 led the field in the lateral stress category, the test that most directly measures what happens when a blade is subjected to forces outside its primary cutting axis, which is exactly the scenario that separates a field knife from a combat-ready one. The G10 handle's three-dimensional contouring produced consistent grip placement across multiple testers in multiple conditions. The CPM 3V held its working edge through scenarios that degraded every steel ranked below it. Number 3 is the floor of what this knife deserves, and depending on your specific use case, the argument for number 1 is not hard to make. Number 2. White River Knives Mark I Pro, CPM Magna Cut. Price, around $280 blade. 5 inches steel, CPM Magna Cut Origin, USA. The distance between number 2 and number 1 in this ranking is smaller than any other adjacent gap on the list, and it comes down to a single test category rather than a general assessment of quality. White River Knives Mark I Pro and CPM Magna Cut is the most technically sophisticated knife in this ranking. MagnaCut's alloy chemistry delivers corrosion resistance that approaches stainless while maintaining the toughness and edge retention characteristics of premium tool steels. And White River's heat treatment protocol extracts a higher percentage of that potential than any other manufacturer currently running the steel in a production combat-ready platform. The 5-inch blade in a modified flat grind produces edge geometry that outperformed everything else in this ranking in our standardized cutting efficiency tests. The MagnaCut holds a sharper working edge for longer under repeated contact with hard materials than CPM 3V does, and the corrosion resistance advantage is real and measurable in sustained field conditions. The handle is a burlap micarta construction with palm swell geometry that White River refined over multiple production generations. The Mark I Pro sits at number 2 rather than number 1 because the knife above it solves one specific problem more effectively. And in combat-ready terms, that specific problem matters enough to separate them. Number 1. LT Vrigt Genesis Tedium 3V Plonvegrin. Price, around $250 blade. For 0.25 inches steel. CPM 3V origin. USA. Larry Wright makes knives by hand in Wintersville, Ohio. He does not have a marketing department. He does not have a social media strategy. He has a grinder, a heat treatment setup, and 40-plus years of understanding what a knife needs to do when the situation is not theoretical. The Genesis in CPM 3V with a convex grind is number 1 on this list because it passed every test we ran at a level that no other knife in this ranking matched consistently across all categories. And the consistency is the point. A combat-ready knife is not a knife that excels in one area and compromises in others. It is a knife that maintains functional performance across the full spectrum of demands that real-world use generates. The 4.25-inch blade is long enough for every task this ranking addresses and short enough to remain a tool rather than a liability in confined spaces. The convex grind on CPM 3V, applied by hand rather than CNC, creates an edge geometry that distributes cutting force in a way that resists both edge deformation under lateral stress and micro-chipping under hard contact. The 2 failure modes that eliminate knives from combat-ready consideration faster than anything else. The micarta handle is shaped to produce identical grip placement in any condition, which matters more under stress than it does on a range. $250 for a handmade knife from someone who has spent 4 decades thinking about exactly this problem. Number 1. 10 knives. 1 standard. What combat ready actually means when you apply it to a fixed blade in 2026 is not a checklist of features. It is sustained performance under the conditions that make performance matter. The knives at the bottom of this list are not bad knives. They're knives that did not meet the specific threshold this test required. And knowing where they fall short is more useful than knowing that they look good in photographs. If your budget is under $100, the Ka-Bar USMC and the Cold Steel SRK Compact both give you real capability with real limitations you should know about before you carry them. Under $200, the top Sierra Delta is the most honest value in the category. No ceiling. The LT Wright Genesis in CPM 3V is the answer that the testing data keeps producing regardless of how the question is framed. All knife links are in the description. Drop your current carry in the comments. I want to know what the people actually using these things trust. Subscribe for a new field test every week. See you next time.